I've often said in my lifetime that the hardest part about running, I'm a runner, ex-runner, I should say, but the hardest part about running is putting your shoes on and lacing them up. And there's 2 steps. And in between the gap of no shoes versus having the shoes on and laced up, there's a lot of time to talk yourself out of running. And believe me, I've been there. And so the hardest part about running is getting those shoes on, getting them laced up, double knot them, and then you get out the door and you take the first step.
How you can be the greatest salesperson on the planet.
Welcome to the Rethink Sales Show. My name is Derek Kelly. I am joined by Jim Shorkey and Dave Long, Jim's nephew.
Yep.
Dave and I were talking off camera about the importance of taking the first step. Dave, in our previous episode, talked about addiction, overcoming that, and a diagnosis with his son that's really hard. But Dave, what does that, in those tough situations, or just in life in general, as an executive chef, what do those first steps look like? You were talking to me off camera, that first step of going to culinary school. Talk about those first steps. And then, Jim, add your piece of the power of taking that first step.
The first step to any task is the seed, the idea that we need to do something, whatever it may be. And for me, it was when I moving out to Pittsburgh and I wanted to go to culinary school. It was, what culinary school am I going to, right? And what do I need to do to move to Pittsburgh? And so the next step is always the first step to the next idea. You end up, every time you take a step forward, you end up having to do something else, taking one more piece of action to continue on the journey to get to your goal. The goal is the top of the steps, and the next step is one foot after another to get you there.
But just to clarify, because this is a little confusing just hearing it, the idea is that the first step is the first step. So once you take the first step, the next step is the first step for that next part of the journey. And so what we were talking about, Cameron, I actually got on the stairway here, and I said, let me show you this. So watch me do this. I took the first step. I'm on the first step. Then the next step becomes the first step. So it's always the first step because you've never been on this step before. So it's not the first step, the second step, the third step. It's not, that's really not, at least in my viewpoint. I think it's always the first step. And I was talking to a good friend of mine about this the other day. And he said, boy, that's a very unique perspective. And it is. Every step is the first step because you're walking on ground, perhaps, that you haven't walked on before. Or maybe today's point, culinary school. The first step for him was to pack his bags, but then the first step became getting in the car. The first step became getting an apartment. The first step became going to that first class, but then he had to go to the second class, which was the first step. Does that make sense?
Right.
It sounds goofy. It sounds wonky. Right. But my idea is that every step is the first step.
Yeah.
Am I clarifying that enough?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think because what you're saying is you then need to convince yourself to take that first step again. Good job taking the first step. There's one more in front of you, and you got to do it again.
Yes.
And then you got to do it again. And maybe walking up a staircase is easy, but it probably wasn't easy after your stroke.
No, God, no. No, it was not. Yeah, that's a good point. When I was in hospital, on my back, a lot of pain, and the nurses came walking into the room and say, okay, Mr. Shorkey, time to get out of bed and get moving. I'm like, okay. So I got out of bed, and they said, we want you to walk. Literally, it wasn't even 100 yards. So down to the hallway, touch the door, walk back. And I did that. It wasn't even 100 yards. Not even 100 yards total, but let's just say it was. It's 100 yards. And so I did that, and I get back to my bed. It's like, I'm freaking exhausted. So I literally took a nap. No kidding. Took a nap. So that was the first step. But then the next first step was to maybe do it twice. Come on. And by the way, I was doing it with a walker. So I wasn't walking unassisted. I was walking, nurses right near me, worried about me falling over and this and that. And so that's really the point.
Yeah.
And now today, 2 years out, I'm averaging for the past 2, and Dr. Rosellis, who was my surgeon, I said to Dr. Rosellis, I said, and this is what we're talking about. I don't want to talk about myself. I really don't, but it makes the point. Dr. Rosellis, we talk about seeking expert counsel. This
Yes,
is the
we
guy
do.
that did the surgery. And I said to Dr. Rosellis, hey, Dr. Rosellis poked his head in the door and said, Jim, how you doing? I said, man, I'm in a lot of pain. He said, well, Jim, you're going to be in a lot of pain. I said, let me ask you a question, Dr. Rosellis. Tell me if this sounds familiar, because you and I have talked about this. I said to Dr. Rosellis, what can I do to make this better? And he said, Jim, walk a lot. That's all he said. Sounds too simple first, right?
Yeah.
Walk a lot. And so I did that with, this conversation was post me walking to the door and back. So when I get home with Aunt Amy, with my wife Amy, and I'm walking on a little circle out here and with a walker. And I think I maybe got 1 or 2 laps, which is literally 0.6, not 0.6, 0.6 tenths of a mile. So twice around would basically be a tenth of a mile. And again, I'm exhausted. Anyways, since that time, I got rid of the walker. Like I got to be done with this. So the walker goes to the side. And I'm walking. Amy's holding me up and all that. I average today 13,700 steps a day. 13,700 steps a day, which is the equivalent of about 7 miles a day.
That's phenomenal.
Average.
Yeah.
And so for me, the first step is right now am at 3,100 steps. So I've got another 10,000 steps to do. And I have that in my mind, okay, to do that. And 10,000 more steps. So my first step right now is to get my shoes on, lace them up, and then walk one step at a time. And hopefully to get it to another 10,000 steps, which would be 13,000, which would be good enough for me. It's close enough. And if I get to 13.7, that's great, but not a concern. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what I'm trying to say. The next step is the first step.
Right.
And then the next step is the first step.
Yeah.
And then the next step is the first step. And again, it sounds wonky, but if you really ponder it, it's not.
Right. And to go with what you were saying earlier when you were demonstrating, the steps behind don't necessarily matter. It's the next step getting up to the top of the stairs. The steps behind you were building the foundation for you to raise yourself in elevation. So they do matter, but you can't go backwards.
No.
So we're just going forward up those steps. And it falls in line with the attitude of one day at a time,
It does.
one step at a time.
Totally.
And being able to just keep moving forward.
And thank you for that. So I think to clarify, so when you're looking at one day at a time, the first step is that one day. So we do the one day. Is that second day the second step, or is that the first step?
Right.
That's what
First
one day at a
step.
time means. It's the first step. It's a new day. It's a new day.
Yeah.
And so we accomplished that. Okay, done. 2 days. Who cares? We still got to get up the next morning and say, all right, new day. First step. It is the first step. It's the first sunrise. It is. It's the first sunrise today. So think about it from that perspective. It sounds wonky. It really does. But we got to be careful that we don't get caught up in step 1, step 2, step 100. It can be overwhelming. But we do know if we've got through that first day of one day at a time, so we did that, and now we know that we can do one more day. Can we do 10 more? I think it's really a bad idea to talk about it. Let's just do one more. Isn't that the message? Let's just do one more. Let's just do one more. So the first step, there is no second step. That's what I'm trying to say. There is no second step. It's always going to be about the first step. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Weird.
With what you were saying of getting out of the hospital and walking with the walker. It's okay. I got to walk more. I'm going to do that today. Wake up tomorrow. Okay. I'm going to do that today. Wake up the next day.
The
Okay.
advice is still the same. On day 57, what's the advice?
Get up.
Got to walk more.
And walk more.
Exactly. Got to walk more.
But that was true of your story too, Dave. It's okay. You're 6.5 years sober now. That first day was the first day.
Right.
The second day was the first day. You said at any moment you could have just slipped back in.
Still
Oh,
can.
So you had to
still
make-
can.
Still can.
So could, you know,
Still can.
driving home today, it could somehow be a good idea to stop at a bar. Maybe the neon lights or something like a moth to a flame. But I know I'm not going to do that.
But in all sincerity,
Very confident in that.
I'm sorry I'm interrupting you.
You're
Excuse
fine.
me.
You're fine.
But in all sincerity, and I want you to understand this, I have a massive chill running through my body right now. And what is that? I know I'm on the right track when that happens. It happens to me a lot where I'll just be talking about this kind of thing, you just gave me a massive chill. And the fact is that Dave Long right here is driving home today, and there's going to be this possibility, and it is a very real possibility, talk to your sponsor, that he would stop at that bar. And so therefore, it doesn't matter that he's 7 years?
6.5.
6.5 years. So it doesn't matter. That's history. What matters is today is day one. If that makes sense. I'm sorry. By the way, let's be clear here, guys. Let's be clear. We're not doctors. We're not therapists. I'm an old Warnock car salesman. This guy's an executive chef, and I don't know what the heck this guy is. He's a media expert.
Yep.
But we're not doctors, so we're not giving you advice. We're just telling you what we're doing, what Dave's doing, what I'm doing. And to a degree, they're all different. But then there's the commonality of, like, he says his approach, I say my approach, Derek says his approach, but they all intersect. And we're basically saying the same thing, just in a different manner. And in essence, that is truly what this Mastermind Alliance, which is right now today, Dave Long, Jim Shorkey, Derek Kelly, and Jess, who's really important today. This is a Mastermind Alliance. And it just means a Mastermind Alliance, by definition, is two, me and Dave, or more people united with common purpose. And what it really comes down to is 1 + 1 = 4. No, it equals 10. Does that make sense, what I just said?
Yeah.
Because if Dave has 2 ideas, and I have 2 ideas, and Derek has 3, and Jess has 3, and we all get those ideas, now we're at 10. So I showed up with 2, and now I have 10 ideas. And that's truly what a Mastermind Alliance is all about.
Yeah, that's
is those
multiplication.
ideas.
Yeah.
It's powerful medicine. And so that's what Alcoholics Anonymous truly is. It's the grand master of Mastermind Alliances. Arguably, maybe the biggest Mastermind Alliance on the planet.
Right.
I don't think I'm off the mark there.
No, it's a we. That's
Big
what they
we.
preach, is that we are all in this together, and we will stay sober
beautiful
together.
thing.
And
Beautiful.
yeah, it's an awesome idea.
But what you would commonly say is the second step, and this is to finally, we'll get off this. What you would commonly say is the second step, which we just did on the stairway here. It's not the second step, it's the first step. That's the point. And then once you're on that second step, per se, the 2 steps up, the next step being the third step, it's the first step in that process. And I think that for us that are trying to fix whatever it is we're trying to fix, I think that is a lot less daunting than I got to get through these next 12 steps or 30 or 40 or 450 or whatever the case may be. I think had you approached it years ago with 6.5 years sober, I think your mind would have said, ain't no freaking way.
Yep. Yeah. If that would have been your
But if you
goal,
do it
I'm going
one
to
day-
make it 7 years, 6.5, but we're going to 7 for easy math.
One day at a time. That's all it can be. Sometimes it's 12 hours. I got to get through this next 10 minutes, but it gets maybe easier to
so.
use that word, or less daunting for sure. And
Yeah.
it's the first step of being successful.
Yeah, I mean, it's the
You know?
wrestling match, right? It's
Right.
your son's first wrestling match that you were telling us about. It's, man, he won one game, or in one match, I was a wrestler, one match in one season, and then maybe 2, and then maybe 3, and then maybe 4, and then, suddenly he's qualifying for states.
And keep
Right?
working.
Yep.
Find the
Excellent.
passion.
Excellent discussion, gang. Excellent discussion.
Thank you guys. Thank you for
welcome.
just talking through. I think those philosophical ways of thinking are really important, right? Because people can get overwhelmed with these goals. I work with a lot of business owners, and they're always like, oh, my goal is to open a 2nd location or a 5th location or a 3rd of this or a 4th of that. And it's like, okay, you want to do that in the next 2 or 3 years. How do we get there? What are the steps? Oh, we got to do this next. We got to do this in, Jim was just saying, man, it's July already. We got to do this in May. We got to do this in June. We got to do this in July. We got to do this in August. But back up. We got to do this July 4th, this July 5th, this July 6th.
And more
right?
importantly, we got to do this July 4th. That's the most important component. We can't do July 5th. And maybe this makes the point. We can't do July 5th until we do July 4th. That's just not how it works. It's science.
Yeah.
We can't do the second step until we do the first step. And that's why my opinion, whatever it's worth, is that it's always the first step. It's always the first step. And I think that our team of called Alcoholics Anonymous would say Man, Jim, you're spot on. One day at a time means that. It doesn't mean 2 days at a time. It means one day at a time, get through the day. And I believe one of their philosophies, is to, because I'm not an expert like you are in that regard, not sarcastically, but I think you hit your knees and you go to bed and you do your sleeping. And then you wake up in the morning and you hit your knees. And in between the knees is the day. And I think it's really, am I right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Am I nailing it?
Yep, nailing it.
And so we can't, I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself, but we can't do step 2 until we do step 1. That's why it's always step 1.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim.
Agreed.
Thank you, Dave.
Well,
Thank you, guys. We'll see you guys on the next episode.